Welcome into this special epic edition of the Mike Gallagher Show. Never before has an American president been convicted of a crime. It's the first time it's ever happened. Alvin Bragg promised he'd do it. He campaigned on the platform and the promise of getting Trump. And that disgusting, despicable, corrupt machine accomplished what they set out to do. So where do we go from here? There are a lot of political and legal ramifications to this. Americans are hurting. Americans are anguished. Axios describes this as a nation right now, and certainly a Republican Party, filled with livid, angry, anguished Americans. And the question becomes, does this get tossed on appeal? This week, we've been checking in with Arthur Aidala, who's a New York trial attorney and host of the Power Hour on AM 970, The Answer in Manhattan. And, you know, Arthur pointed out he's been in these shoes where he has had clients who have gone through the appeals process. And Arthur walked us through what happens on every single level. I thought it would be a perfect day to bring Arthur back on our guest line. He's well known, of course, in the legal profession. He's all over the media right now because, again, this is right in his wheelhouse. Well, Arthur, Alvin Bragg said he'd do it. He did it.
Well, there's one other thing, Michael. If I don't talk to you on Fridays, I start breaking out in a rash. So it's just like a normal
it's like a normal day
of my life. Yeah, it's a normal day. I have to talk to Mike Gallagher on Fridays.
I got you. Well, this is anything but normal, my friend. This is ridiculous.
And you're absolutely correct. And I can say that as a lawyer, this is anything but normal. I'm going to say the same thing I said when President Trump was impeached, when President Clinton was impeached. You know, it's a sad day for America. You know, the whole world looks at us. We're supposed to be this example. And when politicians start using the criminal justice system to go after their enemies, that's the beginning of the end of democracy as we know it. The forefathers, you know, there's 3 branches of government, and they're all supposed to basically stay in their own lanes. And what's happening is the lanes are crossing over. So, you know, and I don't think Bragg ran for DA as harshly as the Attorney General did. I mean, she had campaign posters like, vote for me, I'm going to get Trump.
Right.
But he definitely indicated he was going to get Trump. But here's I don't know if the right word is hypocrisy or mind-blowing stuff. When Bragg comes into office, he meets with the former DA, Cy Vance's team, who are investigating Trump. And they lay the case in front of him. And you know what Bragg says? I'm not going forward.
I'm not touching this. Yep.
I'm not touching this. I don't think it's big enough. I don't think it's good enough. I don't think it's strong enough. Now, I shouldn't say nobody. We don't know what took place in I guess it was a year and a half or maybe 2 years in between Bragg getting sworn in, where he gets sworn in saying, I'm not going to prosecute resisting arrest. I'm not going to prosecute fair beat. He gives this whole he's not going to prosecute, which as a New Yorker, you know, and look, Mike, I'm a criminal defense attorney, right? I'm not supposed to be, advocating for more laws and more people going to jail. But I'm a New Yorker first. My parents in their 80s are New Yorkers. My sister, my kids. I want a safe city. Saying we're not going to lock up people jumping a turnstile to then commit more crimes on the subway is not my idea of a good time. Saying we're not going to – a police officer gives you a lawful order, put your hands behind your back, and you're going to fight with a cop, and the DA's office is not going to prosecute. That's not my idea of a good policy. But going after Donald Trump, and look, to say this is not for political reasons is just ignorant. It's naive. Those are the nicest words I could use.
Well, it's a lie. It's a lie. It's false. It's a false.
Okay. If the same exact businessman did the same exact thing, right? Forget about the election laws, but beefed up a 1099 to overpay taxes. They wouldn't be prosecuting him. They wouldn't go figure out how to take a misdemeanor, the lowest level of crime, that is stale, it's out of the statute of limitations, and figure out some fakakta way of, and that's a Sicilian term for a ridiculous way of twisting it and turning it into a felony where the jury does not have to be unanimous on what this underlying crime is. It just doesn't sit right in my gut. And I would be saying this, to be clear, Mike Gallagher, if Joe Biden was sitting in that defense seat,
right,
or Barack Obama,
correct,
I'd be saying the same thing. This is not, for me, this is not about politics, about, oh, I'm a Donald Trump fan and he's getting screwed. Any defendant in that seat, in that situation, in my opinion, is getting screwed. Pardon my French.
And listen, I want to get personal with you for just a moment. We got a busy day here, and we've got a couple of minutes together. I've got Caroline Leavitt, who's Trump's national press secretary for the campaign. She's going to join us this hour. We're taking tons of calls and texts. I mean, this is a political Pearl Harbor. This is as big as it gets in the political world. We're witnessing a banana republic implosion of our country. I think of you often, and you and I joked last week, I think it was the New York Times that described you as the nicest lawyer who represents like cartoon villains, because you've represented some of the most high-profile criminal defendants in America, and you are at your core just a decent, good guy. Everybody knows that about you. And I think about Arthur Aidala when I think about the reputation of New York, and I think about the reputation of the legal profession. Two things that you love so much. It's in your blood. It's in your DNA. On a very personal level, Arthur, may I say this to you as your friend and your colleague. I'm embarrassed for the legal profession. I'm embarrassed for the court system, and I'm embarrassed and ashamed for New York City. I'm sorry, and I know that millions of us feel the same way right now.
Yeah, listen, you're not going to hear me disagree with you. And you know, my dad, he was a prosecutor in that office in the 60s and 70s under the storied prosecutor Frank Hogan, who the street is named after, where Trump, the entrance that Trump has gone in and out of, is Hogan Place. And he was so against getting into politics, unless, you know, down the block today from the Trump courthouse, you got Senator Menendez.
Right.
Look, if you told me they had Donald Trump taking bags of cash and bars of gold to form his policies, okay, prosecute the guy. Who, again, if that's Barack Obama, that's Donald Trump, no problem with that. But to twist and contort these laws and the system in this way, and look, of the three judges that Trump appeared before this year, Merchan, believe it or not, was the best. He was definitely the most fair. I think the other two judges were so harshly against Donald Trump that there was no shot of any kind of justice there. But the fact that Merchan gave a donation to Biden, the fact that his daughter works for an entity that helps Biden, you know, in terms of what you just said about the integrity of New York, there's 20 other judges in there. There's plenty of good judges in there that they could have given this case to that just doesn't have that stain. But I do have to throw bouquets to one part of New York City. The court officers and the clerks and the NYPD who choreographed the last almost 2 months inside and outside that courthouse were spectacular. Yep. And of that, I was very proud.
Right.
There was no big incidents. They handled the president very well, working alongside the Secret Service, handled the media very well. And I'm at that part because I'm friendly with many of them, and I wanted to give them a shout out. I'm very proud of that, how the logistics were handled. But in the courtroom, in the well, it was a disappointment.
All right, fair enough. In the last minute we have together, Arthur Aidala, New York trial attorney, host of the Arthur Aidala Power Hour. Follow him at Arthur Aidala on X. You can go to aidalalaw.com. Hey, let's talk in 60 seconds of what the appeals process now looks like for President Trump. For people outside of New York or people within New York listening to us on AM 970, The Answer, tell us what the steps will be, what levels he has to go to in terms of the court system in the appeal.
So in 60 seconds, there are two appellate courts in the state of New York. There's the appellate division, which is the appellate division first department. There will be 5 judges who allegedly are chosen randomly. I don't know how exactly they're chosen, but they're chosen, and they will be the 5 judges.
Yeah, randomly. Exactly. As random as Juan Marchand was chosen?
Okay, let me be honest with you about it as well. I believe, I should double check this, but I believe every single one of them has been appointed by a Democratic governor.
There you go.
Whether that be Spitzer, Patterson, Cuomo, or Hochul.
Yep.
So there's obviously some pressure there. So there'll be 5 judges. The defense attorney files the appellate notice right after the sentencing.
Right.
Usually within 90 days, they submit their appeal. Then prosecutor could ask for 4, 5, 6 months to respond, and they'll get that amount of time. Then Trump's attorneys get an opportunity to reply. This is all in writing, and then the court gives a oral argument date. Both sides usually get around a half an hour to argue a case like this, maybe 40 minutes to argue a case like this, and then you don't know when the decision comes down from the appellate division. There's no time frame like there is in the United States Supreme
because
Court.
of obviously the big question here is, before or after Election Day, because November 5th is going to be here before you know it.
Way after.
So no way this can be expedited prior to the election. No way.
No, I mean, It would be we have to alter the contour of the earth to be able to make that happen.
Well,
if he loses there, he could go to the Court of Appeals, which is the highest court, if they allow him. They have to allow you. The way the Supreme Court has to allow you to come there, the Court of Appeals has to allow you to come there.
The contour of the political landscape has sure been changed. Arthur Aidala, we appreciate your expertise very much. We'll talk to you again next week and get your update. Keep fighting the good fight. Thank you. Appreciate it. Arthur Aidala, host of the Arthur Aidala Power Hour. It's your turn. 800-655-MIKE. We do what we always do when there is an epic, breaking, in this case, disastrous news story. Your call, your reaction, your perspective. Because, frankly, we are no longer in a constitutional republic. They've crossed the line. They've lit the fuse. They've gone too far. We now live in an absolute dictatorship. The Founding Fathers are rolling over in their graves at what happened yesterday in New York City. Let's get your take on all of it because the battle is just beginning. Remember something, we got more power at our fingertips and more strength at the ballot box than a million Alvin Braggs or Judge Juan Marchands. Never forget that.